There is a moment in every power structure when emotion stops being useful and precision takes over, and that moment has quietly arrived for the British monarchy. As 2026 approaches, Prince William has made a move that doesn't scream, doesn't posture, and doesn't invite debate, yet it may be the most decisive shift the royal family has seen in decades. While the public waits for arguments, apologies, or another messy family chapter, William has chosen something far more effective. He has gone straight to the framework itself, the rules that decide who belongs and who does not. This wasn't a reaction, it wasn't anger, and that's exactly why it's so unsettling. Anger is impulsive, anger leaks, anger leaves fingerprints. What William has done is calm, deliberate, and nearly invisible unless you understand how institutions actually work. At some point, Harry stopped being viewed primarily as a brother and started being evaluated as a variable, one that introduced instability, reputational risk, and long-term vulnerability. Once that shift happens, sentiment no longer drives decisions. Risk does. Harry and Meghan believed their royal status existed in permanent ink. Titles felt untouchable, safeguarded by blood and history. But that belief depended on one dangerous assumption, that family loyalty outweighs institutional survival. William crossed a line Harry didn't even realize existed, the line where personal relationships become secondary to the crown's continuity. Future kings are not trained to negotiate emotional standoffs. They are trained to neutralize threats quietly before they grow. What makes this move so powerful is what it avoids. There was no confrontation to exploit, no dramatic removal to spin into victimhood, no headline-friendly explosion. Instead, William focused on something far more effective, closing the gray zone that Harry and Meghan had occupied for years. Not working royals, yet still royal. Not serving the crown, yet still benefiting from its prestige. That ambiguity created leverage, branding opportunities, and endless confusion, and William saw it for what it was, a structural flaw. Institutions don't collapse from direct attacks, they collapse from loopholes. William understood that allowing half-in, half-out identities was hollowing the monarchy from the inside, so he eliminated the ambiguity entirely. Service or separation, authority or independence. Once that binary is enforced, everything else follows naturally, no drama required. This wasn't about punishment, it was about containment. Once a system becomes procedural, it stops caring about personal narratives. Decisions turn quiet, legal, and irreversible. The doors don't slam, they simply stop opening. And that is the moment people don't realize has already passed. The real impact of this shift doesn't announce itself loudly, but it changes everything underneath. Royal titles don't erode gradually. They don't soften or dim with time. They either exist or they don't. And when they are removed from the official structure, what disappears is not celebrity, but designation. Identity inside an institution like the monarchy is not emotional, it is administrative. Once the paperwork changes, the reality follows, whether anyone likes it or not. This is where the loss becomes deeply personal for Harry. Without official status, he doesn't simply lose relevance, he loses definition. He is no longer Prince Harry in a functional sense, not symbolically, not rhetorically, structurally. And when that designation disappears, every layer built on top of it starts to destabilize. Titles are not decoration, they are access, they are authority, they are why doors open without being knocked on. People underestimate how quiet this kind of removal is. There is no announcement that says you no longer belong. There is just a gradual realization that invitations stop coming, conversations shorten, and proximity to power fades. Not out of cruelty, but because the system no longer recognizes you as part of itself. That hollowing effect is far more permanent than any public reprimand could ever be. William didn't stop with the present, he moved deliberately into the future. Because unresolved problems inside institutions don't disappear with time, they multiply across generations. Titles create gravity.
They attract expectation, entitlement, and leverage. William understands exactly what happens when status is inherited without responsibility. It becomes a liability that must be managed indefinitely. So he cut the line before it could fully form. Royal titles for children are not automatic, they are granted. And in this new structure, that grant simply never arrives, not as revenge, not as punishment, but as strategy. Because once a title exists, it creates a permanent complication. William is building a monarchy designed to be smaller, tighter, and impossible to exploit by people who never served it. This is what containment actually looks like. It doesn't attack the individual, it removes the conditions that allow the problem to persist. No future leverage, no inherited ambiguity, no lingering claims to authority. The system moves forward without them, and that forward motion is what makes it final. People keep waiting for a showdown. It isn't coming. There is nothing to argue with when decisions are procedural, no ceremony to protest, no speech to rebut, just updated records, adjusted listings, and a reality that settles in quietly. That silence is intentional. Once the structure changes, the narrative collapses on its own. Deals lose their shine, access loses its value. Interest fades not because of malice, but because proximity to power has been officially revoked. People were never buying personalities, they were buying association. When that disappears, so does the attention. And that is how institutions end chapters without ever raising their voice.
What makes this maneuver even more profound is its subtlety. Prince William didn't act to humiliate, to shame, or to dominate. He acted to protect. The monarchy has survived centuries because it prioritizes continuity over sentiment, stability over drama. Every decision is measured against the long-term health of the institution, and every loophole or ambiguity represents a potential fracture. Harry and Meghan's half-in, half-out status was exactly that, a crack in the system that, left unaddressed, could weaken perception, authority, and legacy. Over the years, William watched what patience cost the crown. Scandals lingered when consequences were delayed. Mistakes multiplied when privileges were assumed without responsibility. Every instance where status existed without service created pressure that had to be managed. History offers countless examples of how unresolved issues can compound, slowly eroding credibility. William, inheriting not just a title but a duty, internalized these lessons. Waiting was no longer an option. By quietly removing titles, he eliminated uncertainty. It wasn't personal, it wasn't emotional, it was structural. Harry is no longer a variable in the monarchy's future equation. Meghan is no longer a participant in the formal hierarchy. Their presence, once ambiguous, is now definitively outside the core system. And when the system acts quietly, the effect is far more lasting than any spectacle of confrontation. Power doesn't need headlines, it needs compliance with rules that outlast personal grievances. The removal also redefines authority. William approached his father not as a hurt son or frustrated sibling, but as the future king safeguarding a legacy. The distinction matters. A brother negotiates with feelings, a king negotiates with permanence. By framing the action in institutional rather than emotional terms, William ensured there could be no reversal without formal procedure. Emotional pleas and public narratives cannot undo what is structurally decided. This also reshapes how future generations experience the crown. Titles create gravity, and unearned titles invite exploitation. By controlling access now, William is preventing potential issues for the next generation before they can materialize. Responsibility is inseparable from privilege. In an institution built on continuity, every loophole or special exception is a risk. Eliminating those gaps ensures that influence, status, and authority are preserved for those committed to the institution itself. The brilliance of the move is that it prevents spectacle. No public argument, no sympathetic media campaign, no viral moment to exploit. The power shift is absolute because it is procedural. Those outside the system no longer have leverage. The narrative adjusts naturally as attention fades, leaving the monarchy intact and uninterrupted. The lesson is clear: structure over sentiment, permanence over drama, containment over confrontation. From this point forward, the consequences of William's move ripple quietly but irrevocably. Harry and Meghan are no longer just navigating public opinion. They are outside the institutional framework that once defined them. Without royal titles, every interaction, every event, every platform they use is now detached from the weight of official status. The privileges, the access, the implicit authority, gone. What remains is fame, yes, but fame without formal influence is vulnerable. It cannot command the same gravity, nor can it substitute for structural legitimacy. This isn't revenge, it's containment across decades. The monarchy is an institution that survives not because it punishes, but because it regulates. By eliminating ambiguity, William ensures there is no future space for exploitation, no gray zone for misinterpretation, no loophole that could weaken the crown's credibility. Every procedural decision cascades forward, creating clarity where once there was uncertainty. Titles, privileges, and responsibility now align. Anyone outside the system must operate entirely on their own merits. The most unsettling aspect for the world is how invisible the enforcement is. There will be no confrontation, no press conference, no dramatic withdrawal, just a quiet reshaping of reality. Court listings update, websites reflect new structures, official records document new boundaries. For observers, the change feels sudden, even shocking. For those who understand institutional power, it was inevitable, precise, and irreversible. The monarchy doesn't bend to personal relationships, it bends to rules, tradition, and preservation. The ultimate lesson is that power doesn't always announce itself with noise. Sometimes it moves silently, removing the conditions that allow problems to persist. No villain needs to be destroyed, no battle needs to be staged. The system simply continues, and those no longer part of it fall away naturally. William didn't need to make Harry or Meghan fail. He simply ensured the crown could no longer be compromised by their ambiguous position. That quiet decisiveness is the hallmark of real authority. As 2026 begins, the monarchy is smaller, tighter, and structurally stronger. Harry and Meghan remain visible to the world, but no longer integral to the institution's operations. The public may speculate, the media may dissect, but the system moves on. And in that forward motion lies the real power: permanence without drama, strategy without spectacle, and authority without compromise. In the end, William's move demonstrates that the crown doesn't need to destroy anyone, it only needs to keep going, and those no longer fit simply remain outside.